Now let's work some with the Gchart option in SAS. So I have a data set here. It's a medical data set. I've got a whole bunch of variables here. We're going to work with X, which takes on the values 1, 2, and 3, race, which is a 0, 1 variable, and cholesterol levels, which are pretty continuous. So let me erase that. And the first thing you can do is just do a basic histogram. This is Gchart, data equals incommed, and then the V bar is going to be X. Well, since it's a categorical variable, I guess I should call it a bar graph. And V bar means the bars are going to be vertical. So you can see it just creates a chart like that. If you want to do horizontal bars, you can run a similar program like this, and there you go. It automatically gives you frequencies, cumulative frequencies, percents, and cumulative percents. So that's interesting. Also remember, we're running this little quit statement at the end of every Gchart, just like with the Gplot. If you don't run it, it's not that big of a deal. If you leave it out, you can still see the chart, but if you put it in, then I can go over here to the results column and erase things. So if I click on this and then click on this little X up here, I can delete all the results and everything's fine if I've run that quit statement through. Now let's look a little bit more. We can also do, instead of frequencies on our bar charts, I can put percents. So if I'm looking at this chart, I've got percents in this left column. One more option is I can sort things by race. So if I want to run this Gchart and then have separate charts for separate races, I can run this a frequency of 1 and the midpoint is 1. That doesn't look like what I wanted. So if I close this out, okay, get rid of this stuff. What happened? Yes, look at the log. It gives me an error. What happened was I didn't sort in ascending sequence, or descending sequence for that matter, the data set before I ran this proc Gchart. That's very, very, very often the case. When I try to run some sort of procedure with a by statement, I need to run a proc sort first. So let me show you what it's really supposed to look like. Okay, here we go. For race equals 0, I get a chart that looks like this. For race equals 1, I get this chart. So it gives me two separate charts with separate races. You could also do the same thing by creating two separate data sets, one for each race, but this is just a little bit faster. Compare that now to a Gchart that has group equals race. Watch what happens when I do this. So now I'm putting both races on the same chart, just side by side. I've got race 0 over here and race 1 equals here. And compare that to when I have a subgroup equals race. I'm still going to put both races on the same chart, just in a very different way. I'm going to stack them on top of each other. So green, this green that you're seeing, this is the race equals 1 at the top, and then race equals 0 is in red at the bottom. Now, another thing you can do is, if you don't like the midpoints that it gives, for example, if I get rid of this, I can just run this and see what happens. Well, it gives me some really weird midpoints down here. 0.75, 2.25, 3.75. See, if we look back at our original data set, what was age group like? What kind of variable was it? It was just categorical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all it is. So I really want midpoints that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to add this piece of code in here so that the midpoints are going to be 1 to 7, and then I'm going to increment by 1. So now when I run this, I get midpoints that are nice and pretty integer values. Now here's another fancy way of doing another chart. So I can get this three-dimensional chart that looks a lot like this subgroup one except in 3 dimensions. So let's look at the subgroup one more time and see how I have the greens are race 1 and the reds are race 0. Then if I run it in a little bit different way, I get this three-dimensional plot. And so you can see how before the red in race 0 for x equal to 1, I had a frequency of 7, whereas for race 1 there was 2. So if I look here, I get 7 and 2 here. So it's just another way of breaking up that same chart just in 3 dimensions. So you can see it in a little bit different way. You can also run a proc Gchart that gives you a pie chart, and I'm going to use the x variable and run it. And this is the pie chart that you get. There are 9 1s, 8 3s, and 3 2s. You can also do if you want to specify midpoints for a continuous variable, you can do a similar thing that we did before. We had midpoints equals 1 to 3, and we did 1 to 7 by 1s. If you want to do something like 150 to 250 by 25s, this will count. One midpoint will be 150, and then the next will be 175, 200, 225, and then 250. Does that make sense? And we can run it and see what it looks like. There you go, 150, 175, 200, 225, and so on. And then we also had group equals race. That's why we've got race down here at the bottom.